Thank you so much. It is great to be with you guys today. And Jeff is back doing the slides because he said, Carrie Jo, now this season you are the missionary and I am the covenant partner. So that means that you will be talking and I will be supporting you. And I'm like, yes, sir. Okay. Good. We'll do that. It is great to be here today. And as they talked about the Teens and Talent thing, I was one of those teenagers. I wasn't from this church, but I remember being here and participating in that. So memories go back a long ways because we have been part of this district for a long time. My parents were Don and Joan Kindy, so some of you know that name, and they were in this district. And so through that influence, and it'll come out in what I'm talking about today, God started preparing me way back. And at the age of 6 months on, well, probably a year when I started learning how to talk, preparing me for what he's called me to do today. So today, we are going to go on a really quick journey. And everybody says, you have how many slides? I'm like, because I want people to stay engaged, and I need to catch people up and show you how God has worked and what he's been part of in our lives. So the pictures are going to go along with us. I'm going to tell you a story. It moves fast, so you want to buckle your seatbelts and get ready, and hopefully we'll not lose anybody on the way. But before we go there, I wanted to start with our family. So when we started this journey in 2014, we looked very different than this. But this is our family as of, it says, in Kandern, Germany in 2024. And you guys are very familiar with Kandern because that's where Black Forest Academy is, where Joy Richter was also teaching at the same time our daughter Rebecca was there. So it was possible for all of our family to get together for Christmas finally. We hadn't been together for Christmas in a lot of years. And we were in Kandern in 2024. And that's what our family looked like then. But grandchild number 3 arrived in June 2025. So now we have Bennett and Colette. And then grand number 4 is arriving in 2 or 3 weeks. So Emran was announcing the arrival of her little sister who's coming soon. So we are thrilled to be grandparents to 4 kids and 3 children for us. And our youngest, Rebecca, is at Houghton University. Actually, she's in London right now, but she's attending there. But let me take you back. Our journey started in 2012, really. The Lord really started speaking to Jeff and I and saying, I want you to go overseas. And we're like, okay, what does it look like? We walked through the process, and by 2014, we thought we were going to Kamakui Wesleyan Hospital in Sierra Leone to serve as a nurse and Jeff as the facilities manager at the hospital. And you remember in 2014, something really tragic happened, and the Ebola epidemic started. And that was focused in Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea. And over 20,000 people were infected, over 16,000 people died. It was really impactful. So all of a sudden, instead of us going to Kamakui Wesleyan Hospital, I was asked to go alone and work with World Hope in the Ebola epidemic. Why? I'm just a nurse, because God had ordained this. And in 1966, when we went there, growing up in Sierra Leone, I was both Sierra Leonean and American. I'm a little pale for a Sierra Leonean, but I speak the language, I know the culture, I interact, I have so many contacts and friends that as I move with people and as I begin to talk, they're like, oh, wait a minute, you're not American. No, I'm Sierra Leonean. So I fit into the culture. And my boss, I'd been working at St. Paul Children's Hospital for the last season, and my boss had said, Carrie Jo, I want you to be in charge of the biohazard emergency preparation for the hospital. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And he's like, no, I really want you to do that. I'm like, I really don't want to do that, but he's your boss. So I had to say yes. So what does that do? That prepares you to handle things like Ebola. God knew what he needed from me. So I had practical knowledge and skills. Carrie Jo, the pediatric neonatal intensive care nurse, actually knew how to prepare for and handle an epidemic like Ebola. I could doff and don and do everything that was essential to run an emergency shelter. Do you know how many people there are, especially like nurses, that know how to do that? Not very many. So when I went to Sierra Leone and got there and I found out WHO is there, CDC, they're all there, and they have the book knowledge, and nobody knows what to do. And I was like, oh, I'm beginning to understand. God put me there, and I spoke the language, and I could cross all these barriers, and it was like, just blew my mind, and it was scary. So you see, it was a really serious time. Ebola epidemic, and it changed everything. So we were there. I was there for a year unaccompanied. The Ebola epidemic, we handled a lot. It was not just dealing with patients, it was learning how to do that. But then we began to have survivors for the first time in something like this. But we didn't know, the world didn't know how to handle survivors. We didn't know what that meant. People had not survived Ebola before. And maybe one or two, but not in the numbers we had. And now we had 1,500. And we were beginning to deal with side effects, and the country didn't know, and the whole infrastructure of the country had fallen apart. So where we used to have, we didn't have bridges, we were going in canoes to take supplies, we were doing a lot of monitoring, we had to rebuild up healthcare centers. All the nurses and doctors had disappeared, many had died, but many just said, I'm no longer interested in being part of this because the risk is too much. So it was rebuilding on a national level and making connections that, again, I'm just a nurse. What was this about? But God was beginning to build a framework and a network of what he wanted in the years to come. The world responded, the church responded. I'm sure you guys were part of this because the Wesleyan church responded tremendously and sent so many supplies over. But when they get there, somebody has to take them, we call it the last mile. So Jeff was a huge part of that, of getting donations, arranging them, who gets what, how does it get there. And so that was a huge part of the second and third year, was of taking these donations out, getting them into hospitals, clinics, getting them to churches, including things like this, Clinic in a Can. It's inside that 20-foot container is a fully equipped, emergency room. Everything's there that you need. And so 4 of these were donated, and we had to decide where to put them around the countries to treat strategically to be well used. So things like that were just tremendous. And we spent a lot of time, and a lot of people came that came along to help. So a lot of miles covered and really good connections. Again, linkage with people, Christians, Muslims, non-churched people, but all these connections being made with people around the country because the next chapter was coming. And the next chapter we were going on. But at the same time, let me not jump too fast. Here's one of the big reasons of why we're doing what we're doing for the children there. And every time we outfitted, equipped, were able to be part of a well, I understand you guys have been incredibly supportive in fundraising for wells. This is one of the communities, this is Samaya, and I don't know that yours was, but I was there when the World Hope well was put in Samaya, and it changed life dramatically. So it is incredible. But one of the things that was happening at the same time was Jeff and Rebecca came into, again, a culture of chaos, but we had family, and we had our kids here in the States, so we're balancing all this with our family life. And there were some really beautiful times, like one of our favorite places to go to and swim in the waterfalls there. And college graduations. Our son graduated from college. So special times, and the Lord was so gracious in allowing us to come back and celebrate some of these with our kids here too as well. But remember those linkages I was talking about? Those were necessary because some of the other projects that I had been involved in, and then God gave gifts of funding for infant resuscitation. And this is something I had done for many years in the U.S. and been part of. But one of the leading causes of death in Sierra Leone is after death, when a baby doesn't breathe well, a lot of times they're just set aside and they die. and nothing is done for them, and people don't know what to do. So we were able to train a team and get a grant, and over 2.5 years, we trained almost 4,000 healthcare workers in helping babies breathe. A simple a technique using simple equipment that's reusable in our context and saves lives. So in the first 60 seconds, we can get that baby resuscitated, get them breathing, and 9 times out of 10, that's all that's needed. So a huge game changer. We were going through 3 whole districts, and we don't have roads like you have here. A lot of places, these were our bridges, these were our non-bridges, and you drove through them. So a lot of the places we went were hard to reach, but so impactful. We did go through a few bridges too, but the Lord was good. And again, this is why we're doing this. The Karstens talked about the future, the future generations. This is it. We want to be able to save lives. Save life, yes, but save life so they can hear about Jesus and they can make a decision to follow him or not. Again, another college graduation, and amazing time to come back and celebrate. And some of these things I'm sharing about were also happening at the same time. So I was doing the infant resuscitation, and we were asked to move on to the Wesleyan Conference Center, which had been overgrown by the jungle, and do some rehabilitation. So that was like Jeff's big thing. So for 3 years, we lived in this conference center, and the house at the top was before we moved in, and then we renovated it to make it livable, and then that was it. And he did that throughout the whole conference center. And by the end of that time, there's a really nice conference center left now for the church to be able to have meetings at, gatherings at, conferences at, camps at, rented out. It just really an incredible thing. So that was going on, guest rooms. And the Lord brought about another thing. Somebody from CDC came and talked to me, and there was a little meeting at a hotel, and they said, there's this project we've started, a research project by a guy named Bill Gates, and he was given some funding, and we're looking at maybe doing this in Sierra Leone, but we're not sure that it would be accepted. And because I'd lived there a long time and I'd worked with CDC during the Ebola, they said that people said we should talk to you and see what you think. And as they explained it to me, so often in Sierra Leone at our hospitals, we don't have a lot of great equipment. And so when a sick patient comes, we talk, and you have fever, you have vomiting, you have this. Okay, well, I think it's probably this. I have like 2 tests I can do. And when you go to the doctor here, most of the time they do a lot of different tests, and you have, all your vital signs taken. A lot of times we don't even have blood pressure cuffs because they decay in the heat and whatnot. So a lot of times you're really trying to understand just by words and by looking what's wrong with this patient. This CHAMPS project, Child Health and Mortality Prevention Surveillance, came with actually laboratory diagnostics and a very firm, solid research protocol to help us understand why children were still dying. Because we'd done a lot, and we thought we were treating the right things, but we still had one of the highest infant and child mortality rates on the continent. And CHAMPS was operating at that time in 5 countries, and they were expanding and looking at Ethiopia and Sierra Leone. And so they did. They came to Sierra Leone, and I got to be part of getting this established in Sierra Leone. It is ongoing. It's a long-term, it's a surveillance project. So my role was over the first 5 years to help get it set up in our area, in the catchment, we call it, and we had 2 catchments, to be able to talk to people, to gain confidence. Remember I talked about all those connections in the earlier years, and I began to understand what God had done. Because all those donations that had gone out to all these hospitals and clinics around had opened the door. So I could come back and talk about this project, and they would give me audience. They would listen. And they said, okay, we'll be part of this. We'll do this. People had said in Sierra Leone, people will not allow us to take samples of their child's body when it dies because of Ebola. They will say no. We had a 97% success rate in parents saying, yes, I want to know why my child died. Yes. And so we used minimally invasive tissue sampling, so just needle samples that we took, and it was not invasive, and we were able to start getting answers through this CHAMPS project of why our mortality rate was so high. And it wasn't what we thought. And so we were able now to begin making changes in our approaches, in medication approaches, in vaccine. New vaccines are being developed to address what we now know that we're facing, not just in Sierra Leone, but across the continent. So as I said then, CHAMPS was in 5 countries, now they're in 9 countries, and giving this great feedback. And we're able to work across boundaries, across blockages that existed before, and try and impact. And why? For this, for healthy babies. Also, our maternal mortality rate is really high in Sierra Leone, and as a result of this study, we are focusing on children, but we began to understand that our highest death age was the stillborn, and often that happened with the mother, or the mother died shortly after birth. So we had a very high maternal mortality rate, and as we understood why, we were able to give input back into that, to the nursing curriculums, to the medical schools, all these places, and our maternal mortality rate dropped from 1,400 to just under 400 last year. So this is over a period of 10 years, these kind of differences. And so God opened the door for me to be able to be part of some of these things. Why? Because again, what He had started. Not anything, I'm just a nurse. I'm just a straight up RN, nothing fancy, but God prepared and God led. And that was just, it continues to blow my mind. So CHAMPS is still ongoing, and the word is going out. I was just listening to something they published this morning, and I'm so grateful to have been part of that. At the same time, some of you might recognize one face up there, Denise Hare from Waterloo. We had a lot of teams coming, and I think we counted up over our time there, we had close to 100. But some years we'd have 15, 18, 20 teams coming. And that's a lot, because you have people coming, you have to do all the logistics, organize everything. So this is just a glimpse of a few of the different teams that came. Some were education, some were churches coming to see what they were part of through World Hope, because I was always working alongside World Hope at this point. Stayed aligned with that so I could do more of the health rebuilding and impacting that way. So working in health there. All those are teams that came to, like vision teams and teams that came to see what they'd been part of through World Hope. Really special. And we had a couple weddings. So that was cool. We were able to come back 2 consecutive years. Yep, we had 2 weddings. No, 2021 and 2023, so that was very special. The fun times. And yet God continued to work and call in other places. And again, as He was directing, both of our moms went to be with Jesus over this time frame. So my mom on the right and Jeff's mom on the right, my mom on the right, my mom, his mom. You know, you can see we're both in all the pictures. But it was hard because we weren't there. And yet we knew, our moms knew Jesus, and we're going to see them again. So sometimes serving overseas, it's good and it's hard. And these were some of the harder times. Another project that was really, I guess, I feel lucky to be part of, and building this one up, is addressing cervical cancer. And I threw this one in here, I don't always, but I threw it in here because it's part of the future as I'm moving into this new role. So cervical cancer screening and treating is a big thing across developing countries. It's one of the leading causes of cancer in that setting. We don't see it in America because we've been able to do a lot of other interventions earlier on, but it's something we're looking at. At the same time, Rebecca's growing up, and here we were at this kind of pivotal point, and she's like, I'm not continuing to homeschool. We're like, okay, we hear you. What are we going to do? Well, you guys know about Black Forest. She ended up going there, and it was an amazing 4 years. As we say, she found her tribe there, and God really worked in her life, and we're so grateful for people like Joy who went and taught there and part of that family. And if there's anybody that's considering and or thinking, hey, I feel like God is calling me to do something like that, don't hesitate. Because missionary kids, a lot of times, we could not have stayed on the field without a place like Black Forest Academy. We were at that point. We either had to leave or find somewhere where Rebecca could get good education. We lived in a town where there were no other missionary families. We were at least 3 hours from anybody else. There was no American standard education anywhere around. And so it really meant we stayed, and she went away to boarding school, or we left. And we were very grateful for Black Forest Academy. So I strongly encourage, if God's calling you, listen, go. And then the next chapter really began over the last 3 years. We began sensing God was leading us to something different. And so I stepped out of the projects. My job had always been train people up, get things established, and turn it over. So a lot of these projects, they're ongoing, but they're in the hands of well-trained people who are keeping them ongoing. Infant resuscitation is ongoing. Cervical cancer is ongoing, screen and treat. The CHAMPS, there's a great team, and it is ongoing. So that's been my role, and then God was saying, I'm pulling you out. I want you someplace different. So we started listening to that and working in different kinds of training and developing a Kamakwi action team through Global Partners Health Network, and thinking of how to link in churches in America, how to better make partnerships with the Sierra Leone team. And at that point, we were just thinking in Sierra Leone-wise and what this would look like. So how do we do this? How do we make better communication? Because there really wasn't a good link with the church and with organizing and helping at Kamakwi Hospital and the Wesleyan Church of Sierra Leone. So as we went through these thought processes and asking these questions, I was also asked to teach at a school of nursing there, which was great because of all I learned in CHAMPS, and it was really excited, and it was something totally new and really stretched me, but it was good, and we were happy for that. But we felt like that chapter of being in Sierra Leone was really ending. So what did God want from us? And Scott Addison came, and he's the director of Global Partners Health Network. So Global Partners is the missionary sending part of the Wesleyan Church. And inside Global Partners, there's a little slice over here called Health Network. We're all volunteers. And Scott came along and said, Carrie Jo, how would you feel about working with me? Because he said, I've never lived overseas. I'm excited about this. I feel this is essential for what God is calling us to do in health. But I don't know what it's like to live overseas, and I need a partner who does. So would you consider being that person? And we'd have to create a role for you and everything. So over the next couple months, we talked about it and decided that was. And the Lord confirmed he wanted us to do that. So I'm the health ministries coordinator. What is that? I get to develop partnerships with all the Wesleyan medical fields around the world. I get to link with them, get to know these people, understand what they're about, what their needs are, and what's happening. Okay, good. But why do we want to do this? In November, I went to the Global Missions Health Conference in Louisville, Kentucky. And I have to admit, I was really embarrassed. I was almost 60 years old at that time, and I didn't know this. I learned something new, and it just really challenged me. Do you know that Jesus spent 1/3 of his time in ministry that 3 years? 1/3 of his time was focused on health care. I did not know that. And when I actually heard that and heard that quantified out, it really shocked me because I always looked at my job as a nurse, that I was a nurse over here, and I kind of served God here. And yes, they came together. Obviously, I was a missionary, but it really impacted me. This was a core part of Jesus' ministry. focusing on the health of people. And I knew this because when people are sick, a lot of times they're not able to hear about Jesus. It's not in their capacity. But when they get better, and they're able to understand that it was not just that doctor, it was not just that medicine, that there was power behind that. I want to know about that power. I want to know who this Jesus is. And so that really clinched it for me that, yeah, this is where I want to be. I want to be helping, being part of the global health in the Wesleyan Church. We have incredible work going on around the world. And as you saw, they're sustainable, locally led, building up partnerships, and all for bringing about that the name of Jesus be known. So I put up a quick thing of where around the world we are. We're all over the world. There are places we can't even talk about because the Wesleyan Church is in a lot of countries where we don't publicize that for good reasons. But we're doing nursing schools. You can go back to that other one, Jeff. That'll be great. Nursing schools. We have 3 hospitals in Zambia, Haiti, and Sierra Leone. We have multiple clinics in many different countries. We have respite care in several countries working with HIV, with TB, with orphans. We have refugee care in Myanmar, in India. We have a lot, in Mozambique, we have incredible things going on around our Wesleyan world. But there's a need, and a lot of times we don't know about that. So I'm going to focus and take you on a quick tour of just a couple places, and I'm going to focus mostly on the hospitals. In Zambia, we have Zimba Wesleyan Hospital. You'll see it was established, I think, in 1959. Maybe this sign doesn't say that, but yeah, 1959. It's been there a long time. And it is locally led, and it is, for the most part, sustainable. They are now saying, hey, yeah, if you're willing, we'd love to have you come alongside. So in June, Scott and I are taking a team, and we're going to just go and listen and learn how best can we come alongside. Is it teaching? Do you have projects? What do you need? Is it solar? Is it whatever it is? Administration, build up? What do you need? And so we're going to the hospital, and then they have 3 clinics for now, and we're going to go and listen and find out. They're opening the Africa Wesleyan University College right adjacent to Zimba Hospital, and a nursing program is going to be started there within the next year. So currently there's a diploma program at the hospital, but they're hoping to move that up into a bachelor's program. So an excellent opportunity for us to come alongside, say, how can we help? How can we build this up well, produce good healthcare people, discipled nurses, and other cadres that will come after that? Haiti. In this district, we know a lot about Haiti because we've had missionaries there serving. So you guys know about Haiti, I know. Laganav Hospital, and again, it is locally led. And sometimes, wars and different things force situations that we didn't expect, but it's flourishing and it's doing very well. World Hope also came along incredibly over the last 8 years and was able to support and build up in amazing ways. So they have full solar capacity. They just opened a blood bank last month that is already helping save lives. These are 3 of the main doctors there, just doing a really great job. And then you guys know about the Wesleyan University School of Nursing. And it started, I believe, in 2014, and it's still going strong. So this is the class that is just sat their boards and getting ready to graduate. And it's transformational, guys. We just had a story last week that Miss Leandre sent over about one of the students saved a child who was drowning. Saved him out of the water, but then saved him by doing CPR and getting him to the hospital and following up and make sure he had got the care that he needed. That's the kind of impact over and over and over and over again, but that was just last week. So the School of Nursing is doing very well. On the back table, I have like 4 students there highlighted because they need sponsorship. this is one of those ways where they've said, we need help, we need financial help. And we can't go to Haiti right now. So all the missionaries from Haiti have been deployed other places, Sierra Leone, Zambia, US, many different places. But they need financial help. So we're coming alongside, and we've created scholarship opportunities. And so if you're interested in signing up, we're asking, it takes $200 a month to sponsor a student. So maybe you say, I can't do that. That's okay. We're just telling you what it needs. But if you want to be part of sponsoring a student, just let me know. There's sign-up sheets back there too, and you can write your name down, and then we can get you linked and get the details on that. So that's Haiti. We go to Sierra Leone, Kamakui Wesleyan Hospital. Again, built in 1959. It started in the 30s, but the large hospital was built in 1959. So a long history in a very hard-to-reach area, bad roads. Now, because of a bridge that gets cut off 2 or 3 months out of the year, the road is totally cut off. So there's no access to most of the country. And it's very difficult, hard to get supplies in and out. But strong partnerships, strong local support there. And God has brought, a year ago, we were at a point we had no doctors, and praying, yes, I can't say it enough, praying. If you can do nothing else, please pray. Pray for us. God brought 3 doctors. So from none to 3. It's really great. Both of them, their wives are having babies. Well, one of them is a doctor, and she's having a baby, and her husband. But so they're going out on maternity leave. So we have a little bit, we went from 3, we're back down to 1, and then the other one will come back, and this couple will go out. So keep praying, because God is still providing in other ways. On the way coming here yesterday, I had a phone call from a Sierra Leonean doctor who's just towards the end of his training, and he said, Mrs. Cain, I'm willing to go to Kamakui. That's great. It's hard to get Sierra Leoneans to go because it's not an easy place to live. It's not very comfortable, and the road's bad, and so Sierra Leoneans don't want to go either. And so here's somebody, and he's from Kamakui originally, but has lived out of Kamakui most of his life, but he said, it's time for me to go back. I will go and work at the hospital. This is amazing. God is answering prayer tremendously. Papua New Guinea, 4 clinics, and multiple outreaches. We have India, Mizoram, refugee care, coming alongside to the U.S. Church and saying, we'd love to partner with you. They're doing the heavy lifting. This is great to be able to respond. 1 Corinthians 12:28. As I'm closing, this is a challenge that's come to me. And in the church, God has appointed apostles, missionaries, prophets, teachers, workers of miracles, gifts, those with gifts of healing, those able to help others, gifted in administration, speaking many tongues. What is God calling you to today? He's appointed in the church all of these things. We have a Compass group that we've started, a ministry with students here in the U.S. that may be feeling the call of God into missions, maybe into healthcare. But if you're part of that, or you have somebody in your network that fits that description, see if they'd like to connect with us. There's no pressure, but sometimes you just don't know what the possibilities are, and you're not aware of that. We all have a role in God's work. We can pray. That's huge. We can give. We can serve. Is God calling you to serve? We all need to respond. And so the challenge is to us, how are we going to respond in this season? The last slide is just kind of a fun one. There's a Raise Up Nurses run, a 5K. So here's a real practical way. If you can't do anything else, maybe you can get in shape and run the 5K September 19th and help raise money for the Wesleyan University School of Nursing in Haiti and come alongside. incredible education and teaching that's happening and discipling of nursing students. So thank you so much. Next week, Jeff and I are moving to Kentucky, where God's prepared a place for us to live for this next chapter. So we've been in Minnesota for about 8 months, recovering from surgery and transitioning and figuring this out. And God's leading us to Kentucky, so we're going to go learn a new language, y'all, and see what we can be part of there. We're excited for that. We'll continue working with Global Partners Health Network, and I do a lot of traveling and a lot of speaking and connecting. So I would love to hear from you. Look back the things on the table. There's a newsletter from Kamakwi, a newsletter from Laganav, and there's cards there, so you can contact me. But I'd also love you to put your name and email or phone number down so I can get in touch with you. And I'm never going to ask you for stuff, but I'm going to share a lot of information with you. So thank you very much. It's been a real joy to be here today.